Well, Michael Schumacher has led the World Championship for over 2 years now. Will he still be leading? Will he still be in front at the end of this afternoon? When the lights go out, the race will be on. A giant leap into the unknown in Melbourne begins now! Fabulous start by Panis. Montoya's holding him up. Panis is going to go on the inside of him. It's as you were at the front, the two Ferraris. Coulthard banged into someone there. From the looks of things, the right front of Coulthard. One of the Renaults has lost ground as well. A slightly chaotic start. How is David Coulthard doing, though?
I think it was just a bang of the wheels, or did Coulthard just swerve at the last minute? So Ferrari 1-2 then. Montoya maintained third, and Panis about to be overtaken around the outside by a rather feisty Sauber driver. I think it was Heidfeld. Heidfeld then making good ground, but Panis comes back at him for turn 5 and loses out to the second Sauber of Frentzen. Really, remember, Panis on slick tyres then, so until they come up to temperature, the Toyota really struggling on those dry tyres, and the Saubers on their wets. It's a softer rubber, and the tread block moves around, generates heat much more quickly, and Panis really struggling at this stage. But it'll come back to him, providing he shows patience and doesn't throw it off the road.
But all of these drivers that are pouring past him at the moment, Martin, presumably realising they've got to attack him now while the track is at its most slippery. If they get stuck behind him and his tyres start to find grip, presumably they'll be stuck. Look at this now, David Coulthard. He's got to get past Panis. He lunges down the inside. Whoa, side by side, and look at this. Well, that's Montoya, looks like he's struggling. The two Saubers have gone past him. Now we know that Montoya is carrying a fair amount of fuel on board. Heidfeld has been explosive in these first few laps.
Montoya on dry tyres too, and just cutting across the nose of Frentzen there. So Montoya just having to be patient and wait for those to come up to grip. As I said, the wet tyres so much more quickly build the heat.
Now Button has got ahead of his teammate Villeneuve, so Jenson Button has had an absolutely sensational start. He was 8th on the grid, and as they go through at the beginning of lap 1, Michael Schumacher leading Barrichello by 1.5 seconds. Heidfeld in 3rd, Montoya 4th, Frentzen 5th. Jenson Button goes up into 6th place. Villeneuve 7th, Alonso in 8th. We're on board, though, with Montoya attacking back now to the Sauber.
Yes, Montoya beginning to get some confidence. He'll struggle to get round there. The Sauber having the ideal line. But look, that's surprising, isn't it now? Just another half a lap down the road, and suddenly Montoya is the man on the move because he's got confidence in those tyres. We think that McLaren are getting ready to stop Coulthard straight away and put him onto slick tyres. We'll look out for that one. But at the moment then, Michael Schumacher leads, Barrichello by 1.5, Heidfeld then, this little scrap, Heidfeld, Montoya and Frentzen, about 7 seconds adrift already. Massive gap the Ferraris have pulled out.
One of the most dynamic Grand Prix starts for many, many years then. A mixture of the new rules perhaps, but also certainly the track conditions. Now there's a mixture of weights in these cars. The two Saubers we know are quite light. They will have to make fairly early pit stops. We believe that Jenson Button in the BAR and his teammate Jacques Villeneuve perhaps carrying a little bit more fuel. Alonso is lighter than his teammate Trulli. He will also have to stop early, but we think that Montoya is carrying a fair bit of fuel. Tyres are obviously an issue as well, and everybody working out what's going on as it happens, lap by lap.
Panis still struggling on his dry tyres. He's slipped back to 11th. Haven't seen any sign of Coulthard pitting at this stage. So Montoya then just staying in front of Frentzen. Heidfeld has pulled out a 0.4 of a second gap. Look, they've got the whole pit straight as a lead already. Now Montoya's come up the last corner with more grip on the dry-tyred Williams, more grunt down the straight, and easily through then into 3rd place for Juan Pablo Montoya, and taking candy from a baby, that one. But because he's now on the right tyres.
He's on the right tyre and possibly on the right fuel load as well. Time will tell. This is lap 3. Michael Schumacher. There's David Coulthard into the pits. Ted.
Yes, James, wets off, dries on, so a little bit of fuel as well for David Coulthard. But the critical thing is 2 garages up, Ferrari aren't out, and their 2 drivers are both on wets as well.
Yes, but they're intermediates really, Ted. As I said earlier, they've got a much bigger window. Ferrari can go at that pace for much longer. But that worked out quite well for Coulthard. Be interesting to see if he got through in front of Raikkonen or not, his teammate who pitted right at the beginning of the Grand Prix. I suspect not, actually. We'll keep an eye on that, whether that worked out for Coulthard to pit just into the Grand Prix as opposed to the formation lap as Raikkonen did.
Great racing then. 4, 6, 7, 8 places. Heinz-Charles Frentzen, Jenson Button, Jacques Villeneuve, Fernando Alonso. There is Button in 6th place at the moment with Alonso bearing down on him. And And Alonso on the wet tyres at the moment. You can see Villeneuve as well in the background as Button tries to have a look around Nick Heidfeld. Now Frentzen has got ahead of his teammate Nick Heidfeld, so Frentzen up into 5th place. 2 Ferraris at the front, Montoya 3rd. Frentzen now ahead of Heidfeld, Button still 6th, 7th Villeneuve, 8th Alonso, 9th Trulli, and 10th Justin Wilson. What a fantastic start for the Minardi driver. We haven't really seen him yet, but he is, believe me, up there somewhere. There he is, at the top of your screen, as Button and Alonso, but Villeneuve and Trulli, the 2 BARs, racing with the 2 Renaults right there in the middle of the track.
Yes, Justin Wilson, of course, on those same Bridgestone intermediates that are leading the race at the moment. And as I said to him on the grid, he's going to do a bit of giant killing. He certainly is. He's 0.4 of a second ahead of Ralf Schumacher in the 2nd Williams. He's 11th, Ralf Schumacher is 12th. And where does Coulthard come in? I think Coulthard is at the back of the field as the first driver to pit in race conditions. So Raikkonen is let's have a look. It worked out for Raikkonen by some 12 to 14 seconds by pitting at the end of the formation lap, the advantage. And Heidfeld then really struggling to keep Alonso behind him. They're running 6th and 7th. And Alonso now with a better slingshot, and he has a good run. He'll have the inside line down to the far chicane and will take that slot as long as he slows down enough so as not to understeer through the apex, which is exactly what he did, and then takes a nice move to move into 6th place.
Interestingly, Heidfeld is the Sauber driver on the dry tyres at the moment, and although certainly seems to be working with the Michelin dry tyre, seems to be working quite well for Montoya in 3rd place. Heidfeld not really getting them to stick at the moment. His teammate Frentzen, like the 2 Ferraris at the front on this intermediate tyre, is making hay while the sun fails to shine here.
Right, they'll have to pit the Ferraris. They've got to pit now. Montoya's just done a 1:34.6 on his dry tyres, and that compares to 1:37.1 for the 2 leading Ferraris. Their gap will disappear. They will have to pit instantly if they want to fend off Juan Pablo Montoya this afternoon. And in comes Villeneuve.
Yep, Villeneuve's thinking exactly the same thing. He dives into the pits to take on some dry tyres. Any fuel going in there? Didn't see any fuel going in there. He's carrying a fair bit already, but it's a nice slick stop there by the BAR team. And do we see Ferrari getting ready? No, we don't, not at the moment. So they're not seeing it quite the same way as Martin is. They're going to bide their time a little bit. Perhaps they feel there's some rain coming. Who knows?
Well, Montoya's had another 2 seconds out of them on the first sector of the next lap. That's how much he's gaining. He could take 4 to 5 seconds out of them this lap, and they're just 8 seconds ahead of him. So if they, yes, now they've got to come out. The Ferrari team will have to stop one of their cars.
And this is what the strategy really didn't want. They were planning to go about 17 or 18 laps into this race before making a stop, and at the moment this is not what they wanted, because Montoya has got quite a bit of fuel in his car and he can go quite a distance into this race before he has to make a stop.
And Rubens Barrichello is under investigation by the stewards as Ralf Schumacher passes Panis. That's for 9th place. Ralf Schumacher now coming up to speed on his slicks, and also then goes straight past one of them. Must be a Heidfeld struggling. So Ralf Schumacher steaming along. Their wets have absolutely had it. Rubens Barrichello under investigation. He's got a drive-through time penalty, Rubens Barrichello. I can only assume it's for jumping the start. So Barrichello then has to drive through and then make his stop for tyres. That's going to spoil the look of his afternoon.
Indeed it is. Look at this though, Mark Webber attacking Heidfeld. He's got the Toyota behind him as well of Olivier Panis. Panis doesn't make it through, but Webber does, and that gets a big cheer from the Aussie crowd as into the pits comes Jenson Button.
Can't believe Heidfeld didn't pit for tyres. He just fell away. 1 and 2 cars per straight were passing him, and very strange that he did not pit on that lap. Oh, and it's Barrichello's been in the wall.
Yeah, Barrichello, who was due to come in for a drive-through penalty, has hit the wall pretty hard. Now, he's been dropping bits of debris there, Martin, through that sequence of blind bends. We haven't really seen how much he's dropped down, but clearly he's lost his front wing and his rear wing. And, well, that's obviously been pretty big knock there for Rubens Barrichello. He's out of the race. And will Michael Schumacher be making a stop? We're expecting him in very soon.
Fastest man on the racetrack by some margin last time around was David Coulthard. He's back in 17th place now after that early stop. It'll come back to him as all the wet runners have to stop too. But those that started the Grand Prix on slick tyres, on dry tyres with the grooves, which they are not on the Ferrari, they're the Inters I was telling you about. But those drivers that started on dry tyres absolutely hit it right on the head. Absolutely the right thing to do. Barrichello's going to repair backwards. That's in turn 5. He's lost it through turn 5. I would imagine his tyres were beginning to give up. What happens is, with the tread blocks, the rubber moves around, generates a lot more temperature. Great in the wet, but it soon turns all gooey in the dry conditions, despite how good those tyres are. And that is a terrible mess of that car. That will probably be a throw that chassis away when it rips the suspension like that. Frentzen then in the pits. Heidfeld still has not pitted and is lapping 6 to 7 seconds off the pace in the second Sauber. Sauber have been caught sleeping.
Yes, they have a little bit. Their pit work not quite as sharp as it might be. They were in a lap later than the BAR team, and it's certainly going to cost them later in the race. But I wonder, Martin, obviously Barrichello would have been computing the message, you've got to have a drive-through penalty. It had only been announced a few seconds before he lost control of the car there into turn 5. Is there a sense in which you think he might just have been thinking about and taking his eye off the ball? When
And we've got Furman in the wall. Ralph Furman then has also had an accident. He is on dry tyres there. So where is that going to be? That's not turn 5. It looks like the exit of turn 2, something like that. Quite... Safety cars on standby.
Is it just beyond the site of Barrichello's accidents? It's certainly in the first sector of the lap. And, well, obviously, we haven't seen exactly what happened to Furman there, but one wonders whether he got connected with Barrichello. Here's Michael Schumacher, though. And obviously Ferrari aware that the safety car is on standby. They want to get this guy in and back out again on the right tyres before that safety car is deployed, if it's going to be.
But they've waited too long, James. They should have pitted a while ago, because Montoya had already taken the lead as Michael turned into the pit lane. And they've really waited far too long on that Ferrari. We think he's got good speed this afternoon. He may be able to make the deficit. Rear left has not gone on properly. It's all falling apart for Ferrari. Barrichello in the wall. Schumacher late in the pits.
And the fastest man on the racetrack at the moment is Fernando Alonso in the Renault. Well, our information is... Oh, he crossed the yellow line, did he? No, he didn't. That's the inside line. Beg your pardon. Here, Fernando Alonso in the Renault, the fastest man on the racetrack. Montoya leads on lap 8 as Nick Heidfeld comes in the Sauber. Montoya leads by 6.6 seconds from Alonso. Trulli is third in the other Renault. Then Ralf Schumacher is up from 9th to 4th now in the Williams. Webber is 5th for Jaguar, where he finished last year's Grand Prix in the Minardi. An amazing story that was, and could he repeat it here this afternoon? Panis is also 6th. 7th is Raikkonen, 8th now Michael Schumacher. Remind you that points down to 8th place as one of the D'Amata in the Toyota, the new boy. So not a great day for the debutants. Furman in the wall and D'Amata in the sand trap.
Challenging conditions, but no excuses at this level. And no excuses for the teams either. And that is Furman going off in turn 5 as well, and crossing the debris of the broken Ferrari of Barrichello. So exactly the same place. I wonder if there's a little bit of oil down there, a bit of dirt, because he had an identical accident to Rubens Barrichello. And safety car is out to recover the debris and the car. That is bad news for Montoya, because it's working out, and Alonso, working out beautifully for them, and they'd pulled a gap on the Ferraris. But I just don't understand why some of these teams have been so asleep this afternoon, James. As soon as Montoya starts popping in sector times that's 2 seconds faster than anybody on wet tyres, that is, you know, there's the cue. It can't be any easier for you. The sector time comes up in bright red on the computer screens.
Olivier Panis in the Toyota then comes into the pits, taking advantage of this safety car period. He put fuel into that car as well. That may well work out quite well for him. Mark Webber in the top of your screens is also taking advantage of this period of safety car. And we'll be right back.